Good afternoon. It's an honour to be here, and it's great to be here with so many friends. And I guess over the 42 years of working in education, you get to do a lot of things and you get to meet a lot of people. I actually have ex-students in the room and I have current colleagues in the room. And one of the things that I would say is critical about my entire career is a passion for learning and the significance of technology as part of learning now. And that's my role, is to ensure as I go around the country, whoever I talk to, that if you're not engaging students with digital technology, what world are you preparing them for? And one of the things that I have to say you should all be so proud of, I think, is that in Australia we're a collaborative culture and a sharing culture. And when I go to North America and other parts of the world, they don't have the glams. They don't have places like that have education managers of the quality of Tara and her team and Bridget who bring the best ideas together to help people understand the Opera House. And we're very lucky in this country that there's a group of intellects like this in the room who are sharing, passionate, going to take those ideas. What did we just see? That was an amazing presentation. How amazing to teach kids democracy in that extraordinary way. So I guess, and I think you should be proud of that and hold hands around that, because I've talked to ministries around the world where you would have to pay for everything, that schools buy everything has to be bought. And so there isn't this sort of idea of a national curriculum that's shared, there isn't professional teaching standards that are shared, there isn't knowledge shared in a way. And that's the power of this country, that we still do things, we believe in equity, we believe in sharing knowledge across all fields. My job today is to take you on a bit of a journey, I'm hoping I'm pressing this the right way, about what's happening on the other side, a little bit about you are implementing these fantastic programs. Often education gets a bit of a bagging about what's going on in terms of technology, and I just want to share with you some of the things that are actually happening in the education space. So yes, as a company, our job is that we try and wrap around education to build creative, collaborative learning spaces, because 21st century skills are all about collaboration. And one of the things that I think is a really important thing for you in engaging with educators and your own teams is to be across the latest research and what it's saying. And this piece of research from UK, and that's another thing that's great for us, is that we learn from North America and we learn from the UK and Europe and we learn from Asia, and we put it all together and make it better in this country. And what I think is important, this research says if you put learning as the framework, not the device. You're not looking to see whether the technology worked. And I love the way we were talking about the learning context for why is it that you're putting a technology in, why are you going to invest in that, what's your learning outcome, what are you trying to achieve for learning, not whether, oh, well, we're using iPads or we're using whatever. That is not sustainable. That won't take you as far forward as getting to the intellectual thinking around what learning is occurring. And the thing that they have, they use this sort of taxonomy to examine all of the research in the world around technology implementations in education. And they've come up with this list as a way, and I think it's a really good guiding taxonomy for you in thinking about what you're putting in place. Are you, in terms of your programs, ensuring that kids are learning from experts, learning across settings, and I'm sure that that's what you do with some of the video conferencing programs actually enable that. Learning with others, learning through making. Now, this is the one I want to emphasise. This is the thing, this is the fundamental, most powerful thing that technology can do, enable kids to do things through making. And I think it's very important for you to have in your mind what is it that the student is making in terms of response to the things that you are implementing. Because it's very easy to get caught up with the glamour and the quality of the content you're pushing, but what is it that the user is making and collaborating and creating back? And that's the power of, that's the fundamental thing we see everywhere across the world, that when kids are engaged in the doing or the making, that's when true learning takes place. So learning through exploring, and I also heard this morning the whole notion of inquiry-based learning, having real projects to work on. And learning through practicing and learning from assessment. And it was a really fabulous piece about how we can use technology and learning analytics in really innovative and creative ways to find out what is going on, what is occurring in terms of the learner's mind using technology. And then an interesting piece of research that actually was commissioned by Smart Technologies did a global report about what is different in a classroom or in a school if you integrate technology. So at the moment you would know that smart boards, interactive whiteboards have pretty much been rolled out and very much embraced in schools around Australia. And that, if you like, is a first step on a continuum of technology maturity. The next thing, the current thing, the thing that's on the front of mind in every school in jurisdictions across Australia is BYOD. Digital education revolution is finishing. How are we going to continue having students have access? And BYOD, bring your own device, have parents paying for that, contributing to that, owning that, or finding ways for that to occur, is very much the thinking. So that's the sort of next concept of having everyone all children with a device and connected in some way. But if you put the smart board and the iPad together in a classroom and you get those technologies integrating, then what the global research shows, that's when you really impact on student achievement. So it's not just enough about having me as a presenter doing some kind of amazing piece of content and whiz-bangery. If the student can't interact with that through a device, and also if you're only by yourself in a device and you've got no way of sharing your content or collaborating with other people, then you're not taking those next steps. And so I'm going to show you how we at Electroboard in our video conferencing events program integrate all those technologies. Go into a classroom via video conferencing. We have students on their iPads. They can use a response system to respond to content that's on a shared interactive whiteboard across a whole range of settings. So we know that works and we know that's very empowering. The other really important model that you'll hear technology people talking about, and particularly anybody that's engaged with Apple, is the SAMR model. And the concept about that, and I think it's really important for you, this is where schools are thinking in terms of their next 5-year planning. There is no point putting a technology into a school that only allows you to do what you can currently do. And one of the sad things that you'll hear people say about the digital education revolution, if there's a negative about that, is that all it did was give teachers, students the capacity to type in the classroom. That's not what technology should always be about. It should be pushing the envelope. What will it allow me to do that I could never do before? And that model, substitution is, what we talk about when you're just replacing something that was print and what you were able to do before. Augmentation, modification, what you're looking at is redefinition. What are you going to be able to do in your vision for your organisation using technology that has never been possible before, not just redoing what we did before. Very important. Now, I think you should be proud once again that Australia is leading in University of Melbourne. We're leading our research project about how do you assess for 21st century learning. And we constantly still assessing in paper and print, where we've actually got students who are digital learners creating digital assets and products, and yet we still then put a framework that is actually 19th century models of assessment. And I mean, we saw today what you can do in terms of thinking about assessing in different ways in your area. Well, we're actually leading the world in a framework for examining 21st century skills. What do we want to look at? How do we want to assess kids for things that are about creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, learning to learn, metacognition, and ways of working, because in 21st century knowledge economy, you're expecting people to work collaboratively in the global world. And obviously the reason that jurisdictions have rolled out video conferencing across the country, for instance, and the whole idea behind the Connected Classroom program in New South Wales was to give kids access to the technologies in Australia that they're going to have to use if they're going to be global workers and global citizens. So how do you measure collaboration? And any of you that have ever taught group work can know that there is always the doers in the group and the ones that have no idea. Do you give everybody the same value for their work? And what technologies are allowing us to do through learning analytics is actually have a look at who actually engaged in that, how many keystrokes were as part of that project, how much did that child contribute to a chat forum, for instance. All of those things are measurable. And then this idea of living in the world, being able to show citizenship, life and career, and personal and social responsibility. They're very important new areas for us to assess if our students are going to be competitive in a global world. So I also conducted some research to support this research that was undertaken in the UK, which tried to see whether the students that were in classrooms were different, and to be able to identify them. And they came up with these categories now, the kinds of kids that teachers are seeing. And there's the digital pioneer, you know, there's the budding Mark Zuckerberg sitting in that classroom somewhere, and he's to be encouraged, not to be sort of told, oh no, take your Linux manual away, or I'm not interested in your coding. These are the ones we need to encourage. And these are the creative producers. They're the kids that when you set a task, they always come and they want to make a video, and that wasn't actually on the list. You wanted them to write something, but they're there and there to be encouraged. And the everyday communicators, you probably all live with them. They're endlessly on the phone. They're actually not talking to you because they're already engaging with their own digital community, but they are learning skills that are significant and important. And information gatherers, the ones that when you walk into the class and say, well, we're going to do this today, they've already said, oh yeah, miss, I've already been on there and we should go to this site and do that. So they are there, they exist in our classrooms, and their value should be harnessed. And when I talk to teachers who say, oh, well, we can't even get onto Twitter and when it's all blocked and we can't use it, that's fine. They can use it at home. You set the task for them to do in their time and they bring back the result to you. You don't put barriers up. You can endlessly say no. You've just got to find a workaround and a way to play. So we did that. We interviewed 200 students in New South Wales to see whether, in fact, those kids existed in Australian schools, and they're there, absolutely there. And so it's encouraging for us to know that the sort of students that we have are highly engaged as digital learners, and teachers need to think creatively about how they teach them. The one thing we also asked them was do they like their teacher to be technically cool? And actually they said, no, it's all right. We'll help them, you know. We don't mind helping, as long as they, and I love this idea, as long as they're prepared to take a step into our world. And I think that's a really tolerant way for kids to think, and it's good for teachers to see that they are the facilitators. And in fact, the kids said, you know what, we need them, because they're the ones that tell us what matters for knowledge. So it's a really nice thing to be able to say to teachers that kids actually get why you're there, and very important. So, okay, I'm just going to show you now how this plays out in classrooms, and the sorts of things that we've been doing. So this is what we have. This is the way we might set up a collaborative learning space in the school, with interactive tables, which are to die for if you've never seen one of those. It's a collaborative space for kids to learn together. Video conferencing, smart boards, Apple iPads or tablets, and document cameras, and all sorts of creative digital worlds. And this is not unusual. This is now what we're seeing across a lot of schools across Australia. And what that allows us to do, and I'm going to just show you, these kids are 6, and they were learning about the life cycle of insects that they found in their playground. So they used their smart board to find out what the task was. They're storyboarding the life cycle of the grasshopper. I've only got 5 minutes, so I won't show you that one. They're learning through making. So they're using their Puppet Pals app to take images of themselves and the little creatures. And I think that is a video. We just see, you can see them. I love that, because it just shows you the giggle, the engagement, the fun they're having in doing this. They then showed their presentations through collaboration and discussed whether they were characterising the life cycle. And this is just a little example of one of those videos that they made as to explain how the life cycle of the insect works.
An adult grasshopper lives for 1 or 2 months. The eggs of the grasshopper are laid at the end of summer. An adult grasshopper will lay her eggs underground. And she will lay 6 to 150 eggs. In spring, the eggs hatch. At 5 days old, the nymph first molts. The month-old nymph makes its 5th and final molt. They molt 5 times. Molt means they shed their skin. They roll around on the floor to shed their skin. A grasshopper's eggs are half the size of peas. After 5 sheds, the nymph is an adult and is ready to mate.
Isn't that fun? So that's what's happening on a daily basis in classrooms where people actually know how to do this, and there's a lot of that. So just so to show you the sort of thing we're doing, and Jackie and I will share a little bit more of some of the events that we're running from Electroboard, and we have smart board and we have the video conferencing, and we're able to learn across settings, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that. We do a lot of problem solving with experts. We bring in authors, all kinds of creative artists, people, Ben doing physics, all kinds of talented people have come into our events calendar. Then through cultural awareness with the National Film and Sound Archive and Melda, we hooked up Australian kids across the country to talk about the rabbit-proof fence, and we had a member of the Stolen Generation, and we had the screenwriter there, and we had those kids so engaged being able to talk to the people that were part of that project. With Katie Noonan from Music Aviva, she had kids composing music and sharing music nationally across schools and from a massive auditorium. We've done that at ACME, and we're doing that in Queensland. The top photo is us doing across the ditch a shared Anzac Day ceremony, which was, if you were in the room, the emotions of those diggers standing there saying, "This is what we fought for." You understand how the power of putting kids into those cultural awareness strategies is extraordinary. So that's what technology can do, and that's what we're all doing, and we're very happy to share, help you, give you any advice. We run a training academy so that we build the capacity of teachers to do this. So if you would like any further information from me about that, I'm here for the next 2 days.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sue. We've got 5 minutes for some questions, and while we're finding a question, do you have a sense, Sue, from your experience of the ratio of current teachers who are digitally with it, or is that really hard to...
I think one of the things you can always do is put the normal curve over that. We would say you've always got early adopters. You've got the people who run ahead, they're the champs, they're the ones who, you know, we saw the virtual worlds, and if you know what Plane is, that's an amazing professional development strategy that's across all sectors, where teachers are learning how to use Minecraft and using virtual worlds. Macquarie ICT Innovation Centre was using virtual worlds, getting kids to design in virtual worlds. There are people in this country who are way ahead and on the cutting edge in all of those areas. So if you draw your hump and you put 25% of the teachers who are working there, and they're probably some of the ones you're going to engage in. There is the 25% over here, the Luddites, who will say to me, well, you can say that, but, you know, the dog will eat the homework and I'm not going to give up paper, and that thing doesn't work, and, you know, it's too hard. And I've been getting them through the HSC or the VCE forever. They're there. And you can respect some of that, you know, because they have been. And then in the middle there's the hump, and they're the ones we want to shift. They're the ones we want to transform to feel confident that they can move on. So I believe that hump is moving further because the technologies are getting easier, and we are rolling out, and there's an expectation in curriculum, in their professional teaching standards, that they will do these things.
And as you say, the interfaces become so much more friendly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You got any questions here?
Of course.
Sue, that's a fantastic presentation. I just wondered if you could tell us, what's the one thing you're really excited about in this amazing future?
I
guess when you saw me tearing up, when you put... We did a VC in Gungahlin College with 3 members of Parliament recently, and hooked up 12 schools across Australia where the kids were talking about what mattered to them in these elections, and hearing the voice of youth saying they cared about the things like how we were treating refugees, gay marriage and the discrimination around that, kids that couldn't go to higher education because there wasn't money. They weren't talking about their needs, they were talking about the needs of other Australians. So getting collaborative environments where people are sharing and getting knowledge, and continuing that community that we always are, of a collaborative culture, that's what matters to me. And I think seeing these technologies enable that, that's exciting, really exciting.